Okay guys, today we're looking at all sorts of stuff having to do with powers. First thing that we need to do is again get some terminology in here. And we want to be really careful with our terminology when it comes to powers because there are times where I really believe we use some terminology wrong here. I'll throw an example out here. Let's use the expression 2 to the 5th. As an example, the 2 is called the base. It is the number that is being raised to this number, which we call an exponent. The entire expression is what we call a power. Okay, so oftentimes you'll hear people say 2 raised to the power of 5, and I think that's an improper use of vocabulary, and you want to be careful with that. The entire expression is a power. The 5 is simply an exponent. If I were reading this, I would just say 2 to the 5th. Okay, there's no reason to use the word power in there at all necessarily. So you may hear that as a commonly used phrase, but keep in mind, the whole thing is a power. The number that's being raised to an exponent is the base, and the little number, that's the exponent. So remember what 2 to the 5th would mean. 2 to the 5th is just a fancy way of saying 5 2's multiplied together. So the base number is the number that you're going to multiply repeatedly, and the exponent is the number of times that you'll do it. Now we're going to even take a look at some more complicated exponents later on, but for right now we're just dealing with nice whole number exponents, nothing too tricky. So that's really all it is, just repeated multiplication. So let's practice doing some evaluating, and try not to use a calculator on these. You really want to get practice doing these without a calculator. So 3 to the 4th. If I'm doing this without a calculator, I will probably just write out the 4 3's. Life's easier that way. And you can multiply in any order, so I know that this is really just 9 times 9 when I'm kind of multiplying groups there. So 3 to the 4th is 81. Why don't you go ahead and try the same thing with 2 to the 6th. Give it a pause and come back when you think you have your answer. Okay, so again, 2 to the 6 is 6 2's being multiplied together. And if you do this in your head, the way I do it is I actually group the 3 2's because I know 2 to the 3rd is 8, so this is 8 times 8, or 64. 1 to the 13th you should be able to do without even writing it out. If we multiply any amount of 1's, what are we going to get? Hopefully you just muttered 1 to yourself, because 1 times 1 is 1, times another 1 is 1. Doesn't matter how many we get in there, we're just going to get 1. Another reason that powers can be really effective, and another place we use them a lot with different physical quantities. So oftentimes we will use them with area and volume of squares and cubes. So let's say that we have a square that's got a length of 6. Let's pretend all those sides look exactly the same size, even though they probably don't. Sorry, my drawing skills are not great. And let's say we got another one over here with a length of 4. How would you represent the area of this square using an exponent? Well, the way I would do it is 6 squared. Isn't that funny how that works? Squared is the area of a square. I know, very nice, convenient, isn't it? And we could evaluate that and get 36 if we wanted to. Again, you would just have to be careful. What's the problem asking? Is it asking me to write an expression? So should my answer be an expression? Or is it asking me to write and evaluate? Remember, if you evaluate, that's when you actually figure out what numerical quantity that is. How would you represent the volume of this cube? Remember, cube, same length on all sides? Well, that would be 4 to the 3rd, or another way to read that is 4 cubed. Again, awesome how that works, isn't it? So that's representing physical quantities with a power, and the reason it's kind of good to look at that is because now those names really make a lot of sense. Sure, you could use 6 to the 2nd or 4 to the 3rd, but 6 squared and 4 cubed makes so much more sense when you're talking about area and volume. Next thing that we should be able to do is we should be able to take expanded expressions and write them back as a power. Okay, so kind of what we were looking at in that first section. So let's take a tricky one. We'll start a little tricky and then we'll get really tricky. What would z times z times z be if we were to write this as a power? Again, you've got variables. Well, there's 3 of them, so it'd be z to the third. Remember, the base is the number we multiply repeatedly, and the exponent is just the number of times. What if we wanted to? What if we had something a little more complicated? What if it was 2 times 2 times 2 times 2? And we just kind of keep going, and I'm going to tell you that you don't know exactly how many are in between here, but I'm going to tell you that there's a total of x 2's. There's x of them. Try to think about that one for a second. That's really tricky, isn't it? So I'm telling you there's x 2's there. Remember, x represents a number. Okay, so I'm just not telling you what that number is. How would I write this? Think about that one. I'm actually not going to reveal the answer to this one. I want you to try to think about that on your own. And if you don't, talk about this in your groups tomorrow when you're getting together and talking about things. See if you can figure it out. Okay? If you have trouble, I can help you out in class tomorrow. But see if you can figure that out. Okay? And we could go the other way too. Obviously, we could write x to the 4th as 4x's multiplied. I think going the other way is typically a little bit easier. Last thing we should be able to do is we should be able to write a number as a power. Okay, so when you see power of 4 like we do, write 64 as a power of 4. What I'm actually doing is I'm giving you 4. 4 is the base then. So what I'm doing is I'm asking you to try to figure out 4 to what power is 64. Well, 4 squared is 16, times one more 4, that would be 64. 16, 32, 48, 64. Yeah. So 4 to the third is 64. 4 to the third is your answer. Okay, don't just write 3. You got to write 4 to the third. Because remember, you're supposed to write a power with a base of 4. So there's my base of 4, and the whole thing is a power. So do the same thing. Try to write 1,000 as a power of 10. Think about what that's asking you. Pause for a second, write it down, and then come back and check your answer. Okay, so hopefully you recognize that 10 squared is 100, so that's not it, but one more 10 will get you there, so 10 to the third is 1,000. Okay, I know we did a lot with powers. I'm hoping a little bit of it was review. And again, think about this question just a little bit, and maybe discuss it in your groups tomorrow. See if everybody got kind of on the same page. See if you figured out what was being asked there. That's all. Hope you learned something.